Hi everyone, it's been 13 weeks or about a quarter of the year since the last balanced data slate in January of 2024. And here we are yet again on 25th of April 2024 for a new balanced data slate. Now firstly, a key point to be made with that is, as per the article that Warhammer put up on the community website, is that this balanced data slate is actually just going to be a point change. So actually they say here, is that this is just an update to the Minotaurium field manual, which basically changes the point cost. So, and they'll do a balanced data set every other quarter. So we're now in the beginning of Q2. So that means the beginning of Q3, we can expect a new balanced data slate in July of this year. So that basically means obviously managing all the meta through a points change. Now, this article, which I'll put in the description, basically gives a top line headline as far as all the changes are concerned. It references the crazy sort of Necron combos that are out there, Adeptus Mechanicus getting some more love, Custodes and Orcs obviously have just had their books released, so no changes there, I don't believe. Bits about Tower Space Marines, and they do actually call out Genestealer Cults, Sisters of Battle, and Astra Militarum receive some targeted changes to units that are frequently appearing on top lists. Other changes to increase the viability of less popular units or builds. So with all that all in mind, let's quickly ground ourselves in some statistics. So the two sites I know of and use relatively frequently, firstly is maintained by Goonhammer, 40kstats.goonhammer.com, and I've changed the date to be the 31st of January this year to basically capture the Q1 balanced data set, so a true reference in time. So you can see here the win rates, and my understanding of this is that this is probably a collection of casual and competitive games. So I'm very confident this takes data from, there we go, the Tabletop Battles app. I'm not sure which one that is personally, but it's obviously pulling it from an app. So anybody who plays a game, logs a game on that, it's going to impact this score. So in actuality, this is a very fair representation of the true state of the game, because it captures people who play a lot and are very competitive through to the bloke like myself at the moment who plays like once a month at the moment. So Astra Militarum, you can see 43% win rate towards the bottom of the pile, and as we scroll down, let's see what this is basically saying. Towards the top, Necron 52, Custodes 52, that's going to change obviously with a new book, Sisters, Grey Knights, Knights, etc, etc. So, and Black Templars. Now again, this, as I said, is capturing everybody who plays the game. And then I look at a different website, which is statcheck.com. Astra Militarum is sitting at 47% win rate. Now this, I'm very confident this website only looks at competitive tournament games. So it looks at all the tournaments over the course of, and this is a key thing, the course of the last balanced data slate, and basically captures. So this is a very competitive view. So this is saying, obviously, that in the competitive scene, Astra Militarum is performing better than in the casual scene by a differential of about 4 percentage points. So I think as compared to previous reviews I've done, we are doing a lot better, particularly from a competitive standpoint. And if you're relatively close to the meta and the competitive state, Astra Militarum is popping up, winning tournaments. We do often finish in the top 5, if not 10, depending on the size of the tournament for relevancy. But the one thing that is obvious is there's a bit of a recipe or a standard formula. Tank commanders, manticores, basilisks, Khazrakan spam, and Bulgrim possible spam, and then the rough edges around the side. Well, also Lord Solar, and then beyond that it's almost like player's choice, but they're the key units that have been popping up. So it obviously taken us as a community a while to find out, and then obviously a chap called David Gaylard in the UK found a formula that works, and that's been picked up by a lot of top players and made it work. But within that, I've definitely seen, as I've perused my way through some of the winning lists, there's some really interesting builds out there. So I've seen people winning with like pony spam, so Deathcore Riders and also Attilan Rough Riders. So there's definitely viability in the book. Now, that all being said, these stats don't point to the fact that we're blowing the doors off. 47% win rate in the competitive. This competitive view here is middle of the pack-ish towards the bottom, and likewise in the more casual setting, we're definitely towards the bottom end. And there's been loads of debate, obviously, about how truly competitive Astra Militarum are, and we've seen from the data things are better, and then there's been some very good plays win with guards. So that all in mind, let's now go to the actual balanced data slate, the point update. So firstly, A good one is that obviously, as per the previous ones, they basically put up and down, which is a fantastic way to do it, as opposed to before, it's just all the same color. You can work out what changed. But of interest, quickly go over this, is that the Calidus Assassin has gone up, I think, by 10 points. Wasn't used a lot for Astra Militarum because you don't really need it, because you've got like Gaunt's Ghost to do just as a good job. And another one which I just bought the model for was Lord Inquisitor Draxius, and she's gone up by, I think, 10 points as well. But side note. Okay, let's scroll on to Astra Militarum. So when you look at this initially, as I scroll my way down, you can see this is all the plastic models, and this is all the Forge World models. So if I just scroll in to make sure you can see what I'm talking about, if I can make this zoom in, which I can't right now, very embarrassing, although it gets too far. But the key thing is there's a lot of change. Yeah, so one Forge World kit has gone up, and you can see there's a real variety of changes here. So I'll then take us to a spreadsheet. Love a spreadsheet. I use them all day at work. So you can see here what it basically does, dumped them all. So what it loosely sits at is almost like the headquarter units, all others, and then I've got one Forge World here. So let's look at the units that have gone up and down. Now, the summary of this, and I'll actually go back to this previous sheet because it helps to sort of paint it in the holistic picture, is that basically everything, most things that appeared in the winning tournament lists have gone up. So the ones that have gone up are Basilisks, Bolgrins, Kazrakan, Manticore, and interesting also the Medusa Carriage Battery. So they're all units which appear like they are the formula. It was like Basilisks, two Basilisks, two Manticores, two squads of Bolgrins, at least, and three squads of Kazrakans. So they've all gone up. Now, interestingly, tank commanders, wherever they are, they haven't gone up. None of the infantry squads, no transports, Gaunt's Ghost haven't changed. And if I do click our way back here, as you can see, the color coding basically represents green is good, getting cheaper, and hotter colors are bad in the sense they've got more expensive. Now, Kazrakans have gone up by 20 points to 120 points. That's a 20% cost increase. Now, in the little universe of just analyzing itself, a 20% increase is a lot. Yeah, of course, 20% compared to everything else you can see here, that is a big jump for that unit. Now, I don't know if they needed to be pushed that hard. Obviously, the reinforcement stratagem really made them quite good. And it's interesting it took, until the beginning of this year for us as a community to work out how good that combination was. But it feels expensive. Now, I'm not hyper competitive at all. As I said, I've only played a little bit in the last quarter. But I run two. I've almost finished painting 20 of them. I think I'd still run two. Are they hyper meta now? I don't know. I think, again, I've seen a couple. I've seen some other YouTubers talk about it, and they think 120 is probably too much. And of course, if you run one, it's 20 more points. If you run two, it's obviously 40. If you spam it, that's 60 extra points you've got to cut from your list. And it's all about making decisions. Yeah, so they're by far the biggest increase is then by 20%. And interestingly, from an absolute pointage point of view, they've gone up the most overall at 20 points. So that's one to obviously think about. But I've only got two squads. I'll probably still stick with them because their output is really good and they're very versatile, obviously, because they can do all types of cool things. And obviously the reinforcement stratagem still makes them a very good pick. And I'll get on to how I think they've managed it overall. There's certainly some other ways they could have managed this. Now, other ones that have gone up, of course, is the Basilisks, 135 to 150, an extra 15 points, 11%. And then its sibling artillery piece, the Manticore, gone from 180 to 190. So a 6% increase or a 10% increase. Now, those two plastic kits, I would love to see what the original point cost was at the beginning of 10th edition. They feel like every balanced data set, they've just got more and more and more expensive. Is this the death, particularly of the Manticore at 190 points? It's starting to feel quite expensive, and as we eyeball some of the other kits that have got had changes, there's a lot of stuff now that is drastically cheaper than the Manticore. Now, I think the Basilisks have still got a place. Are you going to play three of them? No. Are you going to play two? Maybe. I still think they're You know, whatever their suppressing fire thing is, you -2 to move, advance, and charge is really powerful, very powerful, still to be definitely used. But then a Manticore, which is D6 plus 1 shots, hyper variable, a very attractive profile at strength 10, AP 2, 3 damage, but D6 plus 1 shots with that variability. Do you want to be sort of spending that many points or something that could just flop and roll 2, you know, non-blast target? So that, you know, is this a death of the Manticore? I don't know. I think, again, it's just funny though, because obviously a 10-point change is not a huge increase overall, 6%, but something I did work out quickly is that if you, across all these changes, and I'm jumping all over the place, apologies, but across all these changes were the key units of Basilisks, Bulgrams, Khazra-kun, and Manticores, a standard competitive recipe list has gone up by 110 points. So that's assuming 2 Basilisks, 2 Manticores, 3 Khazra-kun, 2 Bulgrams. I think that's the assumption, is that's 110 points extra on a 2,000 point list. So that means you need to cut, obviously, that's probably cutting a Bulgram squad. Yeah, so you're going to have to lose a Bulgram squad plus something else, or lose both of some Scout Sentinels who've got those. But that probably conceptualizes, you know, the impact on the competitors. And you've got an extra 110 points over that you need to remove from the list. So that's definitely a way to think about it. They've also then cut the Medusa Carriage Battery. Now 125 points. I think that probably puts it, obviously 125 points. The Basilisk is 150. And let me just check the Earthshaker Carriage Battery. How much is it? I can't remember anymore. I think it's 100 and something. Where are you? Earthshaker Carriage. Oh, it's in Forge War Kit, sorry. Earthshaker Carriage, 120. Okay, so 120 for that. 125 for the Medusa. So, yeah, the Medusa, I don't know. 36-inch range, 10, strength 10, AP 2, 3 damage. So pretty decent profile, but, you know, 36-inch range. It's quite squishy-ishy. Can't shoot at a combat if it gets tagged. Plus it sucks to assemble, having assembled some recasts of them. Is this a def of that kit? Maybe. So they're the stuff that's gone up. Let's look at the stuff that's gone down, because there's a lot that's gone down, which is great. So, you know, again, you could always look, as I said, at the stats and go, why did we even have to change? Like, we're in a pretty good spot here. Like, you know, in the Goldilocks zone, apparently they call it, like this perfect, you know, between 45 and 55. And we're obviously sitting right there. And then likewise, you know, again, in the casual game setting, we're not blowing the doors off. So you could be a bit negator and say, we don't need a point increase. We don't need it, because why? Everything's okay. But then, you know, on the flip side, that's kind of the beauty of 40k. Definitely the recent, and again, I only been playing since middle 8th, but, you know, I think compared to ancient editions like 4th edition and 5th, where there were no changes the entire game, this forces variety. It is frustrating. I mean, I'm still painting 20 Khazra-kun. I finally bought them, and then now they're questionable if you still play them. But at least in this instance, they've given us a lot of new choice to think about. So again, going back to my spreadsheet, so let's have a look at the most drastic changes. So Tempestus Scion Command Squad has gone down by 10 points to 70 points, a 30% change. And then if you marry that up with the Scions, they've gone down by 5 points to 50 points. So, you know, across a blob of that, so you'd have, you know, previously 135 and now it's 120. So if you're conceptualizing that Scion Command Squad and a Scion Squad, that's a 15-point drop. You know, that almost is basically the same up and down net as per the Khazra-kun, albeit 5 points, you know, 20 points more, 15 points less there. Do Scions suddenly take on that role? They are Scions deceptively good, because organic reroll wants to hit, and then if the target's on an objective, you've got full rerolls. So, you know, they're hitting on 3s organically. They've got the same weapon potential as the Khazra-kun. Granted, you don't have the Melter Mine, which is a fantastic piece of kit. Organic Deep Strike, that has obviously huge play compared to obviously the Khazra-kuns need to be reinforced off the table edge. Scions can Deep Strike, so that's more playability. And then obviously with the Scion Command Squad giving the sustained hits, that obviously is a cool gimmick. Get a load of shots out. A lot of high damage or highly accurate sustained hits. So that's a positive. And again, I think that they're being quite good overall to Gar. They haven't just like bumped everything down like we've seen. They've actually given us choice to basically say that, okay, Kazrakan are more expensive, but signs are cheaper. Could you now basically swap and move in your list? Potentially. Something else which is interesting is the Tillen Rough Riders have got cheaper. They've gone from 70 to 60. Now 60 points for 5 horse boys that can't move terrain, quite awkward, super squishy, but can hit very hard with their melter tips. You can buff them with Lord Solar or any other sort of regimental officer to hit on 2s and melee. Suddenly that's, 60 points feels cheap. I feel sad about this because I think Rough Riders at the back end of 9th were just wild. They could get some huge amounts of melee output, but they're just not there. They've got like 1 attack on the melee tip, or they've got this rubbish D6 frag tip thing, which is obviously D6 non-blasts. It's very unpredictable. But 60 points, again, as I said at the top of the video, I did see a dude win a tournament or come in the top 3 with just pony spam, Rough Riders and Deathcore Riders. So clearly, obviously, he's a very talented player, but there's probably some legs there. So nice to see some new potential in the horse boys, and their actual rules aren't too bad. Well, they got the ignore all modifiers to move, and then they can fall back, charge, and shoot. I'm pretty confident. So you could actually trade them up a fair bit. And 60 points for 5 melter tips hitting on 2s, you could definitely take out some heavy infantry there. Okay, onto vehicles. Interesting one is the Hellhound. That's got 15 points cheaper, so a 12% change, 110. And then the Hydra, random Hydra has gone from 95 to 85. So the Hellhound definitely has legs because obviously it's got that, I don't know what the rule's called, but you basically strip cover off a target. So you can stack obviously that with other things. And there's some, obviously, what you can see there, some other changes to the autocannon equipped Lehman Russ. So 110 for a 2+ save chassis vehicle is pretty good. And then again, I've only watched 1 or 2 other YouTube videos, but from what I've read, it feels like, I think for Space Marines, they're kind of sort of encouraging people to play more like actual bodies as opposed to vehicles, I think. So if the meta is going to become more like armored bodies, Hellhound probably has more potential than it did before. Of course, 15 points cheaper, 15 points cheaper. Could it basically make up for the fact, or could it replace the artillery units that have got more expensive? And that's a conversation we have at the end. We'll have to discuss that in a second. Now the Hydra, 4-shot autocannon. I think it's twin linked. If the flyers ever come back, it could be very good. It's anti-fly 2+. Against Tau with their battle suits, and I have no idea what the Tau meta is looking like as far as the units you would take by choice. This could actually have some legs, and of course, I think in my Patreon, my little Patreon Discord channel, where some of my patrons do debate like 85 points for what essentially is a Chimera chassis with 4 autocannon shots twin linked. It's actually like got some good output. But at 85 points, I'm pretty sure it's the same cost as a Chimera. Obviously achieving very different things, but it's getting cheap enough. You could spam through them at 255 points, quick math, and some of it's going to stick. All right, then on to the Lehman Russ family. So this is very interesting for us to consider. Now, firstly, you can see the Demolisher hasn't changed. It's kept fixed at 200. Now, again, this is always the thing is that at 200, the most expensive is all its siblings. It's a 30-point differential now between it and its closest priced competitor. Back in the a couple of days ago, it was 20 points. So the Demolisher obviously is a very strong damage output, wildly powerful, can do so much work. Obviously, if your dice get remotely hot, you will clear things. But at 30 points more now, it's almost like within the universe has obviously changed from a points point of view. Has it still got legs? Now, I didn't see it played much. Obviously, it was played a lot. The Demolisher weapon on the Tank Commander at 205 points, and that's the thing is like, do you want to basically have this model which has to receive an order? Well, so does the Tank Commander. It only can shoot in its ability. It can shoot in combat. with the main cannon versus a tank commander that can shoot on death. I still think a tank commander will always trump a demolisher, because that shoot on death is just great, because you actually turn a shooting it, and it can give orders, of course. So that's stayed the same. Everything else 10 points cheaper. Now, I'll skip into another point, which I was going to make about artillery. Is that okay? So our main indirect pieces, the 2 plastic kits, have got more expensive. Yeah, so if you just ran 2 of each, 2 basilisks, 2 manticores, that is 20, 30, that is a 50 point increase. If you just kept 2 basilisks, 2 manticores, the same. Now, if you stripped out artillery and went into indirect, to direct fire, armoured, which our best choices is obviously the plastic kits from a cash point of view, and then points point of view. If you weren't to look at forge wall direct fire units, Leman Russ obviously is our choice. Now, depending where you live in the world, I know in the US, obviously Playstone I think is still pretty common, and tell me if it's not, any of you you guys and girls in the US, but obviously in the UK, which is fixed terrain, does this mean it's going to be a bit of a reversal of the fortunes for Guard, in the sense that with fixed terrain, which is potentially more dense, obviously indirect has a better chance of doing more work because there's less tight fire lanes. So with that in mind, with Leman Russes getting cheaper, will it actually help those with fixed terrain competitive environments? I don't know, and I'm by far the best player. Like I openly admit I don't play a load, and I'm not that talented. And being very crude from my point of view, I do think my games will probably get worse, the ones I do play, because the stuff I lean into as a casual-ish competitive player have got more expensive. So I need to drop 50 points from my list to make up for that. Now, again, if I flipped it on the head and said, I'm going to go purely into an armoured list, this is another way to always also think about it, is that to take advantage of the point drops, you need to sort of potentially spam armour. So let's make up a fictitious scenario. You want to take 2 Leman Russ battle tanks and 2 autocannon equipped Leman Russes. So that's 40 points of savings you can take advantage of. Now, of course, 170 times 4 is 640, or 680, whatever it is, quick math, I think. It's obviously not cheap. Now, yeah, so 10 points is obviously making things a lot cheaper. I do feel that the Leman Russes, probably the 3 which were typically mostly considered were the battle cannon, the plasma cannon, and the auto cannon. 170. This feels much better. I think even then, 160, I would feel very comfortable, because given these 2 particularly, obviously have got variable number of shots, organically hitting on 4s. We're not reliable. Granted, 2+ body, 11 toughness 11, and 13 wins. We're very can hang around. Obviously, some other tanks out there that are wildly better than ours, but 170 starts to feel pretty good. You can start to spam him and feel okay about losing him. And then the other ones, which I've had a bit of chat and some of the comments on some of the posts I've made also with my group of patrons, is like the Eradicator Nova Cannon at 150, and the Punisher, 150, okay, the Punisher's a bit crap, but then the Vanquisher at 145, suddenly you've got bodies which are very cheap. 145 for a Vanquisher is getting very, very affordable. You take 3 of these, we're sitting at not even 500 points. If you lose 435 points for 3 of them, you lose 145, you're whatever, it's 145. It's not even a tenth of my list. Yeah, a tenth of a 2,000 point list is 200 points, obviously. And it's for example, you definitely feel when you lose a tank commander. You feel that emotionally and also practicality wise. Particularly, it doesn't shoot on death. Or I want to shoot on death. So 145, you spam them. It's 435. It's not even a quarter of your list. And again, having read some other opinions, is that okay, it's only got 1 shot. But if it sits still, hits on 2s, it's amazing. You could fail the hit, you could fail the wound roll, your opponent could roll the save roll, but fire 3 of them, one of them's going to connect, and one of them's going to blow something up. D6 plus 6 damage, re-roll damage roll into vehicles or monsters. something's going to die. Something's going to die or take a lot of damage. And of course, we can't forget, which I often forget, that, okay, you've got the main cannon of this weapon being pretty crap, but then you've got a las cannon, 2 multi-melters or plasma cannons, a stubber, and a hunter-killer missile. So obviously, it's got a lot of DACA coming out of it. So yeah, I definitely think if you're, in a player-place terrain environment, I think this is probably going to help you more than those in a fixed environment, and that's maybe me sort of justifying to myself that's not going to get easier. But overall, like, this is the thing. Again, I've read, a Goonhanna article, and they rate Guard as losers in this, in the sense that our best units have got more expensive, and that's definitely a very competitive way to look at it. Is that the units that were making us place in the top parts of some tournaments and improve our win rate have got more expensive. And as I said, in the traditional recipe standard menu card list that was winning tournaments, 110 points means you need to cut something serious here to obviously make it into 2,000 points. But for everybody else, there's enough here that we can obviously make something work. Now, I have no idea what that is. I've got a team tournament in Birmingham end of the month. Any of you folks out there playing in that tournament? It's super casual, just a bunch of dudes who don't actually know each other. We're just going to go play board games for 2 days, which would be fantastic. But I don't know what I'm going to take. I still think I'll probably take, 2 Basilisks, 2 Kazrakan, everything else, Lord Solar Command Squad, infantry, chimeras. But then beyond that, I mean, I kind of think maybe it's 2 Lehman Russ battle tanks and 2 exterminator autocannons for basically the organic reroll once to hit, or full rerolls if the target's on an objective, and then exterminator Rust to shoot first onto the target and give additional AP. So at least then you can turn your AP1 battle cannon into AP3 battle cannon with an exterminator plus fields of fire from a mortar team that a Sala Creek gives a stratagem for free. So is that the formula? Is it 2 Lehman Russ, 2 external autocannons? So what's 4 times 170 is 680. Okay, we get something quite expensive. 2 Basilisks, that's 300. Some Kazrakan, that's 240. We're sitting there at 1220. I don't know. Yeah, so that's basically it in a nutshell. Is that we have had a lot of change. Our best units that were winning as tournaments have got more expensive, but we've had on the other side a lot of units and some nice ones to see. Obviously, Attilan Rough Riders getting cheaper is cool, because I want to use them. I've got admittedly 20 Deathcore Riders I proxied, but I want to use horses and smash them into things, and probably 3 will die in the count and punch back. You fall back the other 2 and they can do something, but it's good to see. So again, competitively, it doesn't look nice because the best units have got more expensive, but I would definitely say there's a lot of opportunity here. And it's up to us for the next 3 months until the next Battle of Dataslate comes out to work out what that winning recipe is. So yeah, what do you think? What do you think is going to be the next winning combination for Guard? Please tell me, because I want to know, so I can go into this team tournament with half a chance of doing okay. And just any other commentary, yeah. So if you know more about the wider meta, I've had a look briefly at some of the other changes, and I think it's like Orcs are looking to be absolutely amazing. I think things like Black Templars have got a bit cheaper, got more expensive rather. They've like gone up a little bit, like nudges here and there. But yeah, so what do you think? And if I've got anything wrong, let me know. But let me know about what you think about the overall changes in the comments. Love to hear from you. So thanks as always to those of you that support me on Patreon. And if you enjoyed this video and want to support me in other videos I produce, you can do so with a like, comment, or by subscribing. Joining my Patreon platoon if you're feeling super generous, or just watching any of my other YouTube videos. I'm a true Astra Militarum variety channel. I cover everything from the tactics like these videos, the hobby aspect being painting, unboxing, or assembly videos, and finally also some lore videos, with my recent sort of series of videos being how realistic are certain parts of the Astra Militarum story. So get your bayonet sharp, las gun oiled, faith in the Emperor strong, Patreon platoon, sound off. Tank Commander Glenn, Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten, Tank Commander Mitchell, Lieutenant Burke Nielsen, Lieutenant Smith, Colour Sergeant DuPont, Sergeant Adal, Scott, the Colonel Merrill, Veteran Gibson, Hall, Lundeen, Guardsman Beard, Coquelin, Flint, Hills, Malik, Nitin, Nguyen, Tom, Tompkin, Conscript de Paz, England, Evan Gunn, Gillian, Goodwin, King.